I'm Shipra. I'm the product evangelist here at Miro.
And I'm Varun Parmar. I'm the Chief Product Officer here.
And we believe the future of collaboration is visual. As we think about the future, it's worth taking a trip down memory lane. Humans are inherently collaborative. We've been collaborating for millennia to build previously unimaginable things. Yuval Noah Harari, the historian who wrote *Sapiens*, credits our development to the fact that humans are pretty much the only animals that can come together, build a shared vision, and execute against it. Well, in our settings in enterprise organizations, we usually use email and meetings to collaborate. Now, email came about around 25 years ago, right? And before email, if we needed to share some information or ask people for things, we had to actually physically go to them or just call them on the phone. Email made all of this really easy, but along with this ease of use, we became less deliberate. So now we're using email for things that email isn't great for. Something like dozens of back and forth threads that stretch out over months. Email is great for one-way communication, but not for back and forth. Email has become overwhelming. The other way we solve for back and forths is by meeting. There were 550 million meetings that happened over the last month, and 42% of people have left these meetings without saying what was on their minds. This is according to a survey by Slido. Imagine all the good ideas that were left unsaid. Imagine all the risks that you could have mitigated if you had only been able to create a safe space for people to share their point of view. The reason that emails and meetings don't work for us anymore is because we're doing complex work. In an assembly line, each individual has a pretty strict boundary around the work that they're doing. But in our workplaces, we're making dozens of decisions every day that affect others around us and affect other teams. Throughout all of this, we here at Miro are seeing three emerging trends. Hybrid work is here to stay. It's not going to surprise anyone. We're seeing a resurgence in agile ways of working and a renewed focus on breaking down knowledge silos. And Varun and I believe visual collaboration is the answer to these three key trends. When I say visual collaboration, I'm talking about a shared space where you can collaborate and communicate using shapes, pictures, drawings, shared spaces that feel free-form and flexible. And that's what we're building here at Miro. You can think of Miro as a virtual whiteboard on steroids. It's not just us, honestly, that see the value of visual collaboration. It's our 30 million users. They see it too. We've been around over a decade. 99 of the Fortune 100 use us. And Miro is supported and built by a globally distributed teams. And we want to get into each of these three key trends, and Varun and I will share with you how we see visual collaboration solving for each of them. So let's start with hybrid work. This is probably top of mind for everyone. Like I said, it's not going to surprise anyone. Hybrid work is the future. This particular survey is from McKinsey, but I'm sure you guys have seen multiple surveys like this showing that the hybrid working model is how most companies are going to evolve, accelerated by the pandemic. And hybrid meetings are hard. We kind of figured out how to do remote meetings, right? Because we were forced to figure it out. But as we see more and more hybrid meetings, we hear people joining these meetings remotely talk about how it's hard for them to follow along. They see They see sort of a conference room table with a sea of tiny little faces. It's hard to know who's speaking. And how many of you have been in a meeting where somebody in a room starts drawing on a whiteboard and helpfully, turns their camera at the whiteboard to show you what they're writing. But if you're remote, you don't see it. You don't see what they're doing on the whiteboard. Well, you think in person is better, but honestly, it's not. What we hear from people who join hybrid meetings from a conference room with other people is that they feel like they're missing out on the chat conversation that so many of us are used to having now in every meeting. So they bring their laptops to the conference room, and here they are glued to their laptops. And so they're thinking, what's the point of being here? Like, I might as well just be at home or be at my desk. Hybrid meetings are really difficult to get right. Along with this, we hear executives telling us that they're being challenged to create an inclusive and equitable hybrid experience for all employees, so that if you choose to be remote, that you're not penalized for that. And as we see this hybrid world coming together, we no longer think of whiteboards as objects tied to meeting rooms. Instead, we think of them as things associated with teams and projects, objects that provide continuity across locations, across geos, and across times, across meetings. We've been working pretty hard here at Miro to make sure that we are where you are. So whether you're joining meetings from a room, a conference room with an interactive display, Miro's integrated with all of the major displays out there. Whether you're joining from Zoom, WebEx, or Teams, whether you're even checking in from your phone, Miro shows up where you are so that anyone joining any meeting from anywhere can follow along and can contribute. With that, we're building the best of breed solution for hybrid teams. And I want to leave you with a reflection on what togetherness means. What is it that creates a real sense of togetherness? So many of us have been seeing this, right? Like, we're in these meetings with dozens of other people, where there's a lot of awkward interruptions, silence. Only one person can speak at a time. You don't get a sense of the crowd. And usually there's no agenda. Is this what togetherness is going to be? Or is it going to be something like this? I want to show you a GIF of one of our team meetings with over 100 people, where you can see what each person is thinking right now. And this ability to be heard by everyone and to be able to read what dozens of my colleagues are thinking right now in their own homes or offices across the globe. This creates a feeling of synergy, of coming together and connection that honestly we didn't even have when we were all in person. And this is what we're trying to build here at Miro, a feeling of togetherness. I want to pass it on to Varun to speak more about Agile and silos, two really common complaints that we hear about.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Shipra, for all of those great insights. So folks, like Shipra mentioned, there are three key trends here at Miro that we're seeing. Shipra walked us through what we're seeing in terms of hybrid work and all the investments that we're making in the product to support these new ways of working. What I'm going to now do is talk to you about the remaining two trends. The first one is around resurgence of Agile. And then the next one is around breaking down of knowledge silos. So without further ado, let's get started. When we look at Agile teams, our friends at Boston Consulting Group have this really interesting statistic that I find very fascinating, which is if you compare two sets of companies, the first set of companies are the ones that actually embraced agile ways of working. And you look at the productivity of those companies compared to the ones that did not, the ones that actually embraced agile were 40%, not 10, not 20, but 40% more likely to have an increase in productivity for those teams. This is significant. And what's even more fascinating is that when you look at the functional teams that are there that are embracing agile. So traditionally, we've thought of agile as things that IT teams or engineering teams or product or design teams embracing. But what we're now realizing is that people across functions outside of IT and engineering teams embrace agile. In particular, if you look at it, there's a 100% increase, 100% increase in teams in marketing, security, and operations embracing agile ways of working. So then the question to ask is, but what's the big problem here? The big thing that we see is that no one out there has actually gone ahead and solved how agile works in hybrid environment. And Shipra just talked about some of the challenges that teams are facing when parts of folks are actually inside the office and other folks are actually working remotely. And the reason why we need to think about this is that all of us that have been trained in agile, we all at some point have read the 12 principles of Agile Manifesto, right? And one of those 12 principles is that when teams are interacting with each other, they need to do it in a face-to-face conversation. This literally is one of the principles. This is the Bible of Agile, and it says you need to do it in person. And when the whole world was remote during the pandemic, it was fine because the definition of face-to-face were that all of us were in a virtual video conferencing call. But what happens when part of your team is actually in the office and other parts of the team is actually remote? This is the fundamental problem that we believe that at Miro we are solving for all of our customers. The way we do that is that we provide you with a single hub. This is the home base where collaboration across different functions in a sprint team is happening. If you're a product manager, you can actually put your specs on a Miro board. If you're a designer, you can put your design assets on a Miro board. And similarly, if you're engineers, you can actually connect with your ticketing system, your development system, and start to show that in a single place so that everybody has a 360-degree view of what's happening inside of the team. But equally important are all the rituals that are performed as part of the Agile team. High-performing Agile teams never miss all of these rituals, and all of us are familiar with them. You know, things all the way from daily stand-ups to sprint planning, to backlog grooming, to retros, etc., are things that make Agile teams highly productive and efficient. And for each of these rituals, Miro really accelerates how the teams operate. Take, for instance, sprint planning. One of the key activities that team members perform in a sprint is that they take a bunch of tickets from their backlog and they engage in an exercise that we call as estimation. This is extremely critical because every team knows the velocity that they can deliver based on historicals. And what they do is they take each and every ticket and then they estimate what amount of story points are associated with that so that they can actually take those tickets to the sprint planning. Miro offers an app, a planning poker app, which allows you to do this Fibonacci series or t-shirt size estimates in terms of how to do sprint planning in a very elegant and efficient way for your team members. We also help turbocharge retrospectives. Why is retrospectives important? Because at the end of the sprint, you want to see what worked well and what didn't work as well. And you want to share those learnings with the team member and then make sure that those learnings are incorporated in the next sprint. One of the recent additions as part of our core product update is the ability to automatically cluster stickies based on thematic areas. So we've trained a machine learning algorithm based on NLP that looks at all of the stickies on a Miro board and then clusters them based on what seems similar. This can dramatically cut down the amount of time a facilitator or an agile coach or an engineering manager or a product manager is spending in a retrospective to make sure that the insights are delivered in a very succinct and efficient way to the rest of the team members. Obviously, one of the most complex things a team can do, and this depends on company to company, if you have omni-channel experiences that you have to think about, is map out the user story or the user journey associated with that particular flow that you're trying to architect. And this requires multiple people to come together to contribute to define what that flow looks like. And this is where Miro really helps with sort of multi-user collaboration, where you can see out here, this is actually not an image. This is actually a live Miro board that has a bunch of stickies, it has comments, it has cards, and all of this can be presented in a single view. And if you want to actually take some of these user story maps, which are represented as cards, and you want to say, hey, I want to convert this into a Jira ticket, you can do it right away. So for example, I'll come out here and I'll actually take one of this Miro cards and I'll say, let me actually go ahead and convert it into a Jira card. And you can see literally in a matter of seconds, this got converted into a Jira card with the assigned person to the right project, etc. So this is a very simple and easy way for you to basically take your work, which was part of an ideation session, part of a brainstorming session, and then convert it into actual to-dos that actually get linked to your systems of record. And integration with Jira cards is one of the many integrations that Miro and Atlassian have jointly developed. For example, we have an integration with Confluence. So if you write your specs in a Confluence page, you can take a Miro board that probably defines the user story map, and you can add it as a link to Confluence, which then embeds the Miro board. So this is a live embed of the Miro board. So if you make a change to the Miro board, it gets reflected in the Confluence specification document. Or if your team has actually embraced Trello as your task management system, and these could be folks who are actually outside of IT and engineering teams, we have a similar integration where you can take a Miro board, add the link to the Miro board, which then renders the Miro board right inside of Trello, which provides for a much more engaging experience. So this is just a few of examples how Miro and Atlassian are working together to deliver value to our joint customers, all of you that are on the call today. Okay, so that was resurgence of Agile and everything that's happening around there that Miro is doing to support all of you to embrace new Agile ways of working. The other sort of key trend that we are seeing is these knowledge silos that start to develop inside of the organizations. And generally what we find is that the bigger the organization, the more these silos. And typically when we talk to users inside of these businesses, we find that in some cases, they actually don't know where the source of truth is. You know, sometimes teams use different tools. They have different ways of basically creating these documentation sites. In some cases, they actually don't even know that there might be other folks in other functions that are actually working on something similar. And then oftentimes, even though they know a document exists, somebody's actually worked on it, they might not know the name of the document or where to go and find it. And that leads to a lot of lost productivity and people actually going in and recreating all of these works. The net business impact of this is that we are slowing down innovation in our respective companies. The amount of time that it takes to take an idea and convert it into a customer outcome is increased when we create knowledge silos. And here at Miro, we want to make sure we solve those problems. And the question to ask is, how do we do that? We do that by providing a single pane of glass. We are committed to building integrations with all of the systems that you use. So for example, if you are a product development organization and you like to put your specs in Confluence, you can bring those inside of Miro. You probably are doing tracking of analytics inside of your product using Google Analytics, or any product analytics solution like Amplitude and others. And you probably have like documents that exist in like modern authoring tools and so on and so forth. All of these systems are going to get integrated with Miro so that you have a single pane of glass where you can deliver the end-to-end sort of insights to all of the users inside of your teams. And what we're doing is that we are actually covering the entire spectrum of use cases that you have as a team to be successful. We've been traditionally very, very strong in some of the brainstorming and ideation use cases that we have millions and millions of users for, and Shipra gave us some really great examples there. And what we are now doing is actually investing more and more in deepening those use cases while also adding net new use cases. So let me talk about these business critical use cases that some of our customers are using and give you some real world examples of how some amazing companies are taking advantage of our visual collaboration platform. For example, take Dropbox, a Miro customer. And what they're doing is that they're actually enabling onboarding of new employees on Miro by creating these rich experiences where folks, when they come in, they can actually take a look at all of the content that they need to have access to in order to be productive. Why is this critical? Well, when an organization decides that they want to be remote first, in the case of Dropbox, that's the case, they want to make sure that when they hire employees in geographies and time zones where they don't have a physical office, where the manager is not located, where there might not be IT resources, it becomes extremely important. It's paramount that you drive productivity for these new folks that you're getting in. It's not just important in order for the organization to deliver results, but it's also important to make sure that in today's world, employee engagement is the number one metric every single leader is focused on. So we want to make sure that an employee gets access to the information they need in order to do our job. And Dropbox is giving us a great example of what a world-class experience around onboarding looks like. Or, for example, take a look at Better Cloud, which is also a great customer of Miro. And what they do is that they create these boards which are used for strategic planning, where they're bringing in things like their OKRs, translating that into initiatives that these teams are driving, taking those initiatives and mapping them to resources, mapping those resources to availability and projects, and having a single source of truth across the entire organization where hundreds of people can basically participate in this process in order to make sure that there is full alignment and all of the dependencies across these different teams and individuals are fully mapped out to ensure that they can deliver on the plans that they actually are investing towards. Another great example of how a customer is leveraging Miro for a business critical use case that's important for them in their day-to-day operations. Or actually a fun example of how Miro uses Miro, right? So this is a virtual campus that we've created, very high fidelity, very visual, where over the past couple of years, when folks were feeling like, hey, where should I go for a certain resource and stuff, you can actually create a virtual campus. We're already seeing companies talk about digital HQ or digital offices. Miro is a great way to basically deliver these amazing experiences where somebody says, I don't know where I need to go to find the latest policy on expenses, or where can I go to get the information around the vacation policy. You can build these great visual experiences as opposed to having documents and then filing those documents in folders that are generally hard to find or navigate. You can actually build these beautiful experiences. So at the end, what we're doing is that Miro is providing a single visual collaboration platform to you. That single collaboration platform allows you to use us for hybrid ways of working. Shipra gave us lots of examples around how we are integrating with video conferencing solution. How do we support teams that some of the team members are in the office while others are remote? And you can use the tool for both internal as well as external meetings. These could be things where you're running agile planning inside the company, or you could have teams that are engaging with customers, prospects, vendors, contractors. We're a single platform that allows you to do that. But beyond that, like I just mentioned, we are helping you with business critical processes and business critical use cases. For example, if you sit in HR and you're thinking about what does a great onboarding experience look like, particularly for employees that are remote, you can use Miro for that. And we walk you through an example of what Dropbox is doing. Or if you are in learning and development and you're interested in delivering engaging experiences around training and enablement, you could use Miro for that. If you're in marketing and you're doing a bunch of planning around your brand campaigns and then your launch planning around products, etc., you could use Miro for that. So for every single function in your organization, there are multiple use cases around which you could use a tool like Miro to deliver great experiences, increase employee engagement, reduce the time to market for great outcomes for your customers and for your partners and vendors. I really hope you enjoyed this session. If you want to learn more, I would encourage you to go to www.miro.com. There you can sign up for a free account and try out Miro. And thanks again for your time. We really appreciate it.